Hello everyone, my name is Hafid and today I have with me Ayah Lopez. I met Ayah at UTD. She is a fellow comet and we actually met one time. She says that we met two times. And I know Ayah from her work Andalus, which is a VR experience. This was your capstone project, I believe. And I also saw some of her animations. I have The Butcher. And then was there another animation that I'm missing that you worked on?
I worked on Drift, but that's pretty forgettable, honestly.
Okay. And Aya, you are a look development artist, so you work with shading, lighting. You do a little bit of 3D modeling. Can you tell us a little bit more of like what you're doing right now, and just give me like a quick bio?
Okay. So my name is Ayah Lopez. I am a 3D look development artist. I graduated from UTD with a bachelor's, and my senior capstone was Andalus, a VR experience exploring a Moroccan 3D environment.
I picked Aya to be the guest today because I just love her work. And this is going to be a pretty interesting challenge that we have for her in this episode. You say you know Alebrijes, right? So let me open this questionnaire where we're going to find out which Alebrije is most likely going to be your spiritual guide. And just a quick background for the people that don't know Alebrijes. They actually come from the city of Mexico. Their creator is Pedro Linares. And it's believed that on the verge of death, this man was contacted in a way and he was kind of like hallucinating this like spiritual animals in a combination with plants. And this guy actually is a cartonero. Back in the 1950s, 60s in Mexico City, this guy actually created carton. This technique also spread to Oaxaca, which Manuel Jimenez was one of the main artists in that area, and he actually started making them out of wood. Pedro Linares, when he started the Alebrijes, he used wire skeleton, and then he modeled the creatures with cardboard, and then after that they would just illustrate them and paint them with a lot of different colors, and these colors will represent human emotion. So since this is a combination of animals and nature, they represent human emotion. It can either be something happy, it can either be aggressive. They were said to be spiritual guides for those who were passing to the next life. Like if you guys remember Coco, was it the chimera?
A chimera, I feel like traditionally is like a hodgepodge of animals. Like in each different culture, like chimera means something different. But I guess that's a good word for in Coco. I think you're talking about the aunt, the one with the cat.
Yeah. That's a beast. Okay, question number 1. Are you more likely to dream of A, falling, B, going to the grocery store in your underwear, C, flying, or D, eating a giant marshmallow?
Flying, for sure.
Okay, what do you want to get for lunch? Carnitas, Thai lettuce wrap, General TSOs, I don't know what that is, and then calamari.
The Thai lettuce wrap.
Which movie are you most likely to watch more than once? Fantastic Mr. Fox, Wedding Crashers, The Fast and the Furious, and The Big Lebowski.
I feel like Fantastic Mr. Fox because that's the only name I recognize.
Yes, that's same with me. What's next on your Netflix queue? I have The Russian Doll, The Romanov, The Umbrella Academy, and then Glow.
Umbrella Academy. Okay. For sure.
Okay. You see Danny Trejo in the street. Are you most likely to A, convince him to go get a taco together, B, run, C, fight him, or D, tell him you're a big fan?
Oh my god, that was Machete.
Yes. That's the only guy I know.
Such a big fan.
Yeah, that's the only way I remember this guy. He's from Spy Kids. Novel you are most likely to recommend: Catch 22, Alice Adventures in the Wonderland, The Game of Thrones, Moby Dick.
I wouldn't recommend any of them, honestly. But if I had to pick, I think it would be like Game of Thrones, I guess. I don't know. I guess Game of Thrones out of all of them, because I feel like Moby Dick is such like it's such an old book, and like if I were to tell someone to read it, they'd be like, ew, why? You know?
Okay. Next question: which activity sounds most appealing? Skateboarding, going for a run, paintball, or yoga?
Paintball sounds like a lot of fun.
Next question, I don't know if it applies. Do you have an iPhone?
I do.
Okay, yeah, so which color iPhone will you get, or which one if you already have it? So I have the yellow one, the white one, the red one, or the black?
The black one.
Okay, nice. What is your dream car? A vintage Mercedes, Lopez, a Porsche 5050 Spider, a Bugatti Veyron, and a white 1970 Cadillac DeVille convertible.
Wow, these are a lot of names. I feel like whatever is like the sportiest one, I feel like I don't really like vintage cars a lot. I don't find them like cool looking.
The Bugatti is really close and like super almost like a racing car.
Race car. That's the one then.
Okay. Bugatti Veyron. Which video game will you like to beat or recently finished it? Super Mario Brothers, Frogger, Double Dragon, and Asteroids.
I think the Super Mario game, I feel like I've bought so many like Mario games and I never finished them. I like played them for like maybe 10 hours. I'm like, all right, I'm good.
Oh wow, you actually got the same one as me. You got Buzz Bunny, so let me send you the image so you can see it. It says, this bad bunny doesn't take any guff off anybody, and she knows what's up, dog. Doesn't mean she can't laugh when something is funny. Quick and decisive with zero fucks given. She's the Rihanna of rabbits.
Oh, that sounds like me. Chaotic, good energy. We would love to see it. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that's gonna be the challenge for you. You know, just use that as a reference. Your own colors, you can add any patterns you want. Okay. Yeah, I was looking at your, let me see. Let me open up your resume. As 3D artist, I imagine us having like a belt with like the software that we use and those being the tools. So I mean, you've tried Substance Designer, Substance Painter, Adobe Suite, you know, the Quixel Suite. You put Windows, iOS, Linux. I have never tried Linux in my life.
It's not fun.
Okay. You have V-Ray. I've heard of V-Ray, Arnold, Unreal Engine. I don't know what Marmoset is or SpeedTree. I know Maya, Nuke. I don't know Mari, Unity, and Shotgun. Oh man, that's a lot.
Yeah, I feel like you said, definitely like the whole like analogy of like a tool belt is like really good to help kind of visualize it, but like the tools itself are constantly changing each year.
Yes.
As long as the belt like sort of stays secure on you and you know like exactly what you're doing and like the skill is there, but the tools will always change, I think. And that's like the biggest thing about like being like a 3D artist like in our industry. It's like every 4 or 5 years there's something new that's coming out. There's something new that's like really amazing and really cool, and you see like artists always migrating from like time to time. Like for example, Mari and Substance Painter, they're both texturing programs. It's traditionally used in the animation industry a little bit more. Now that Substance Painter has become like basically industry standard and everybody uses it across the board, you know, Mari is one of those programs that, you know, unfortunately it's kind of getting like left behind a little, but like it still has its uses, you know. So like if you're doing like characters or like if you're making a dinosaur like that's supposed to be in Jurassic Park, you would definitely go to Mari to texture it because you're having like these huge like UV spaces that you want to have such intricate detail in and that sort of thing. You want to do Mari for that. Versus Substance Painter, it can technically do the same, but you don't want to do it in Substance Painter, you know. So I think it's like the technical like know-how is like always there with the artist. It's just like the tools will always change.
You forgot to add their Procreate.
Oh, I don't market like my my 2D like stuff at all. Like I definitely see myself way more as like a 3D artist. I think 2D art is like a hobby, anything. Like it's like my place to go to after work, you know.
Okay, so question number 1: since you do lighting, shading, modeling, which position is your favorite and why?
Definitely the texturing aspect of the pipeline is my favorite. I started out as a lighting artist at UTD, and I feel like that's where a lot of like my background is, like in terms of like time, hours and hours in the practice. I think I've done lighting the most. Texturing definitely is like where I kind of found like my lane, and I like really enjoyed it because I felt like I could make more of a personal impact on the project versus like lighting. You know, lighting is really beautiful in its own way, and it's very technically challenging in its own way. But I think like each aspect of the pipeline, like there's a technicality and there's a sort of like nitpicky like threshold that people can handle. And I found that like texturing was like that place where like the amount of detail, the amount of skill versus the amount of artwork, I vibed a lot with that kind of ratio more than any of the other positions, for sure.
Going back to ArtStation and you know the software that we used so far, which one is, I know it's kind of hard to pick one favorite, but give me two. No, give me, which is your favorite software to use and which is like one that you just don't want to open.
Maya gives me like Kill Bill sirens in the background when I open it. I'm like, oh my god, here we go again. But I think my two favorite to open are definitely Substance Painter and Substance Designer. And Substance Designer is a little bit weird for me because like it's a very, very demanding program. Like you really need to know your stuff, and it's very intimidating, especially for like artists who are trying to get into material creation and texturing. It is like the big scary brother. Like it's not friendly at all.
Wow.
But there's so many resources out there, you know, to help with that. But I definitely think there's a huge like personal learning curve, and I feel like since I've kind of gotten over that learning curve, it's so super rewarding now that I can like go into designer and like throw a couple notes together and like get what I need to get, versus like before spending hours and hours like searching up like, how do I do this? How do I do this? You know, and like a project could have taken like an hour, or supposed to take an hour, and it ends up taking like 4 because you're trying to learn what you're doing or what you don't know before you know. So
Yes.
I definitely think Substance Designer and Substance Painter are like super rewarding once you get over like the learning curve, and like once you find your groove, like it definitely like makes you feel like you know what you're doing, you know?
That's awesome. I had a similar experience with Maya. It was my first time getting into 3D animation per se. I mean, I heard of Maya, man, at least on the computers at the lab and the second floor. It took so long to open. That's the first thing.
Oh, I remember that.
It took so long to open Maya, and
oh my gosh.
it was just so overwhelming. Like, where do I start? Where's everything? First day I tried it, that's the last day I tried it. Do you know who Professor Scott is? You know, like a 3D studio where the projection mapping was happening?
Yeah, I remember the studio, and I vaguely remember the professor, like very, very vaguely.
Yeah, so he has a class called 3D modeling for digital fabrication. That was like my first interaction with making 3D models and approaching it more creatively. So we modeled, I think my first project was model a castle, and I modeled Tenochtitlan. And that was so cool. And then we just kept going. We used that model to 3D print it, and then we made like a kind of like origami, like, you know, those cardboard structures that everybody was at ATEC doing, like the
put out like on the floor and on the first floor.
They come from that class. Yeah, that's what you learn how to do it. It's amazing. After that, I just kept going, and then I discovered Keyshot. I discovered Cinema 4D, and once I discovered Cinema 4D, I stuck with it. Yes, the interface, I loved it. It wasn't as overwhelming as Maya. I just saw some people do some really cool stuff, and yeah, from there, you know, I got into rendering systems, materials. I got it into node editing. I was also overwhelmed by that because it looked like, you know, it was procedural, and I had no idea what that was. All the different maps, diffuse, displacement. I didn't know what it was. But like I said, like once I went through that learning gap, you said a ramp? Curve. A curve.
No, you're good.
I'll watch like 1 minute tutorial for this, and then, you know, I got into 5, I got into 10-minute tutorials, 1 hour tutorials. But yeah,
that's how it always starts. It brings you in very slowly, but then once you're in, you're in.
And that's so cool that you had a pretty similar experience. I'm always open to new software. I've been wanting to try Substance because a lot of people use Substance, so it's amazing that you're so good at it too. So
oh, thanks. I feel like I still have like a little ways to go, like to like really feel confident in it. But like it definitely does reward like the hard work, and like you said, like once you find your groove, like you said with like cinema 4D, it's like once it clicks, like that's it. Like now you have like you have all of this extra knowledge that you've learned, like accumulated over like, you know, all these years. Like, okay, I know what a diffuse map is, and I know what a roughness map is, and now that I have like the tool and I understand the tool, like it's all over, you know, like now I'm dangerous.
Now, yeah, like the bunny.
Yeah, man. Exactly.
So still in the kind of like the software theme, the next question is related to shortcuts. What are your top 3 favorite shortcuts?
So I'm garbage, and I don't actually remember like the key bindings for the shortcuts. I feel like I was very stubborn to not learn like keyboard shortcuts like at UTD. One shortcut that I use without question in every project that I do is mask, and it's not really a shortcut, but I think like it is definitely like one of those tools that I always use, no matter what it it is. Like if I'm drawing, if I'm painting digitally, if I'm setting up a scene to render, no matter what I do, I set up masks. I think it is such like a underrated tool that like a lot of beginners don't really know. Throw it around so much when we're talking to each other, like, oh, you can mask this in, or you can mask that out, or if you use like a green screen mask, you can swap out the values and blah, blah, blah. And it becomes like a lot of like lingo, industry lingo to like a beginner who doesn't understand, you know, what that is. And that was me. I was the beginner. When my professors were like, oh, you know, just mask it. And I'm like, what does that mean? What do you mean mask it? You know? And like, you know, Peter McCord, he would always say like, oh, just mask that out. Just mask that out. And I'm like, but I don't know what that actually means, you know? So now that I do know what it means, like it's something that I use like without a doubt all the time, and I think it's such a powerful like tool in your little like, you know, artist like tool belt, you know, like masks save lives and it saves your projects as well, you know.
I don't know if this is it, but like leading to the next question, would you say that masking is like the hardest technique that you have learned so far, or is there like another one that you're still kind of like struggling with?
In terms of like something that was the hardest thing to learn, and it's something that I still really struggle with, is roughness values, like determining how like shiny or dull a object is. I don't know what's wrong with me, but it is something that I like genuinely struggle with, especially with the type of style that I go for, which is leans more towards like realistic values. So like, you know, I try to get like real world values of like leather, of like, you know, oily surface, of like wood. And I try to incorporate that into my work. But it's like one of those things where like I feel like that's still like the beginner student in me. It's like, okay, I don't understand it just yet, but I feel like once you grasp like roughness, like that's when your project really starts to like show it, like it becomes really strong in its demonstration, and it shows your technical understanding as an artist. Like, okay, I know what the roughness value of a grape is, you know, like who knows that? Only texture artists know that. And only they worry themselves about like what a roughness value of a grape is, you know, like when it's, you know, a grape that's cold is very different from a grape that is room temperature, you know? So that's one of those things where I feel like I will always like strive to get stronger in, is like roughness values and roughness maps when it comes to texturing.
So what is the most helpful, I would call it like a tool in your software?
I think when it comes to some like the most helpful in Substance Painter, this is like something that I really like, is basically Substance Painter has a bunch of different viewports that can view like different maps, and it shows you the whole model in this certain type of map. So if I want to see the normal map of the entire asset, to just show me the normal map, or I can switch my viewport to show me just the specularity roughness, or I can like change my viewport to just look at the metallic aspect. And I think that is like something that I have like I really underutilized like when I was first starting out, and only now that I'm starting to see their like tremendous value in, is being able to just look at your model with like just one map at a time, so that you can really like troubleshoot and break down a lot better of like things that are going wrong, or things that aren't looking correctly, or like what your masks are doing, or what your textures are doing, and really like plan and troubleshoot and understand like the process of what you're doing. So I think that is definitely one of the most beneficial, like helpful things like ever, that I feel like a lot of like beginning artists like don't really utilize. And that's just more of like not understanding like the tool, which is totally understandable, because if you're just jumping into Substance Painter, you don't know these sort of things. Sort of thing comes with time, you know? So I definitely think that is something super beneficial.
And getting outside of the software use, like which software had yet to try and you would love to like just, you know, give it a shot?
Blender, actually. It's becoming like something that's really being talked about in the animation game circles, just for like for personal artwork. I see a lot of artists jumping into Blender and doing their work there, and I think that's so cool, because like Blender like 4 or 5 years ago was something that you kind of laughed at, like you know, like very snootily, like you use Blender, you know. And now we're all eating our words, because you know Blender is starting to become like a really like competitive program, and my best friend has like recently gotten into it, and all she sends me now is Blender related stuff. So it's definitely like super influenced like my point of view, like, oh, okay, you know what, I might try it, you know. There's always that like infamous like blender tutorial, which is like the donut that you make.
Yes.
Like, tutorial, the donut. So like I really want to like jump into it and like make a scene and like really try it out. I feel like Blender has come a long way, and I think that like it deserves a chance now to like, for like artists who are like super into Maya or super into Unreal, like it deserves a chance to like jump into Blender, learn how it is. And it's free, which is even more amazing. So
yes.
Yes. Cool, you know, for artists who are like curious, like it's such a great tool.
I recommend Blender. I tried the donut tutorial. I feel like donut tutorials are just like base of, you know, learning any kind of software, because kind of like if you can model and texture a donut, you're gonna learn, you know,
you'll be all right.
Yeah. I recommend Blender. I love the user interface. I just think it makes sense. It looks updated, you know, like it just looks modern. Actually, Cinema 4D, I use this particle simulation software that uses Cycles 4D, and Cycles is actually Blender's native renderer, like real-time renderer. That's another thing that I love. Like when I was starting to, you know, get into the 3D world, rendering was kind of like, oh yeah, you know, this is how the final product is gonna look like. And I didn't know about real-time rendering. I didn't know that. I thought like, okay, you make your changes, then you let it render for like 5-6 hours, and then and then you're like, oh wait, let me change it. Oh, okay, another 7 hours, and it was just a pain. It was just a pain.
Yeah, I definitely remember the days of just sitting in the freaking lab and hoping your render came out okay after like 6-7 hours.
Okay, so next question: what are two artists, one 3D artist and one like maybe traditional art that you get inspiration from or you look up to?
So I'll start with the traditional artist. I feel like I've been talking about him lately a lot because I love his work a lot, and I've been following his work since like 2016. You know, not a long time, but that's kind of when I started getting into art seriously. His name is Andreas Roca. He's a Portuguese artist. I love this man's confidence in his color. I am not an artist who is confident in their color. So how he controls his color and how a lot of his palette is very like monochromatic. From piece to piece, it varies, but like usually he has like 1 or 2 colors in his scene, and it really like his compositional skills are fantastic, and his storytelling skills are also like amazing. And just the way that he built his scenes, and each scene varies so much from one another, but you can still tell like his style, like you can still pick his style out of a lineup, you know. Definitely like I look to his traditional work or his 2D work a lot when I start my projects. Like if I'm like, oh, I want a certain vibe of lighting, like I'll go to his art station and I'll grab a picture and I'll be like, boom, that's the one, that's what I want. I think he's such a fantastic artist. I don't know, I feel like not many people talk about him, and so like I really am like, I will be your spokesperson to the day I die. I love his work. And then for a 2D artist that I look up to a lot, her name is Natalia Freitas. She is a texture artist, and she's currently my mentor, and I spoke with her like very recently. I met her just very recently, and I think she's an absolutely wonderful person. She's very like encouraging and like very kind, but she also has a strong command over her skills, and her story is like super crazy as well. Like she's a Brazilian artist, and she basically got like, she was really so talented that Germany picked her up and asked her to come study in their country, and then Disney caught wind of her, and she worked at Disney for a couple of years, and now she's kind of like doing her own like freelancing thing, and like her journey is so amazing, and she's like really been through it as like a female, you know, Latin artist. Like she's experienced it all, and she still has such a grace and like wonderful vibe. I'm such a fan of her. And the fact that like, you know, she also is my mentor, so I learn a lot from her, like on a artistic technical side a lot, because like the way that she like point out things, it's not like, hey, you did this wrong. It's more of just like, hey, when you look at this, like let's break it down together, and I'll show you how to look at it from a different point of view. And it's very like on a critical thinking side, like super beneficial, you know, because like we all interpret things very differently. Like if we were both to look at a same material or textile, you know, we'll all like call it a different, you know, name, or we'll all like pick out different interesting things about it. But like as a texture artist, you're supposed to match it, and you're supposed to know your shit pretty much. So she definitely does. I think she's definitely like one of those artists that I do look up to, and that one day like I want to reach her level and like be like as talented as her, and like have that sort of grace to share with other people as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at her work. This is crazy. She's using Substance Designer to do this?
She's using I think she used Substance Painter for a lot of her stuff, but she also uses whatever. She's not like somebody who like is held back by certain programs. Like she whatever program there is out there, I'm pretty sure she knows how to use it, you know. She just jumps right into it.
For the next question I have is a little bit more personal. Like, what is one thing that you would tell your freshman self if you were going back in time and you saw your freshman self and you can quickly just give him some advice? Like, what would it be?
I would say allow yourself to learn. Allow yourself to not know things. You know, people are at different stages in their artistic journey, and you can't look to someone and be like, wow, I suck, because you're doing a disservice to yourself and to that person, because you don't know how long it took them to get there. You don't know when they started. You don't know what led them to be in that place. You know, being competitive is okay in my opinion, but to sit down and tear into yourself and like tell yourself that you're not good enough or you won't be good enough is not fair to you. So I definitely say like allow yourself to learn, allow yourself to be a student, and try and don't be racing after people without, you know, knowing where the steps on the road are. That was like one of the things I know that I struggled with is like my school didn't have an art program at all. We were 42 graduating students, and like going to UTD and having like these really nice computers and these really like cool subjects, and like taking that first like the intro to animation class, like I looked at it and I was like, all of these people knew what the hell was going on in that class. Me, I had no idea. Like when they talked about texturing and lighting, I was like, what does that mean? Man. All of my journey at UTD was like chasing to be the next like best like artist, or like, you know, there's like always those groups of students who are like really, really good, and a lot of the student body like talked about them like they were like little shining stars, rightfully so, because they were so dedicated to their work. And I feel like in the beginning, like I didn't allow myself to learn. I was just trying to chase after like being good and being seen as good, you know, rather than actually being good and like knowing your stuff. So definitely like my biggest advice is like allow yourself to learn, allow yourself to be a student, and things will fall in place afterwards.
That's really good advice. Your freshman self would definitely thank you.
Freshman self wouldn't listen to me actually, but you know, that's okay. I don't expect her to.
Okay. Oh man. So the next two questions are more general. So what are the last 2 songs that you added to your library?
Spotify. Let's see. Selena. Okay, it's Selena by Ezel and Bear, and there is, I'm a big Black Bear fan, and I think he just recently came out with stuff, so I'm gonna send. Yeah, I feel like my music taste is very like all over the place.
Nice.
So you have like from reggae to Arabic music to more traditional like Puerto Rican folk music to French music, and then That's crazy.
That's amazing. All over the place. I think that's a really big like advantage, you know. Like I feel like music is just obviously on another level. Like we can connect, we can talk about music on a meta though, you know, but it just tells so much about the culture. And I guess leading into the next question, what's your favorite food and drink? Let's just say fast food. Any fast food.
In-N-Out, I think for the most part, like I've done my fair share of late night, early morning In-N-Out run. Okay, I think this is gonna sound really bad, but pumpkin spice latte, like my inner white chick is coming out shamelessly. But I really like. I look forward to like wintertime, so I have a pumpkin spice latte.
Nice.
And then I think for my favorite non-American food and drink, definitely would be like Coca-Cola, like not from the States. It tastes so different in Puerto Rico, and it tastes so different in Morocco.
Yeah.
And I have had Mexican Coca-Cola as well, and like they all taste so much better than freaking American Coke. So I would definitely say that would be for the drink. And then Moroccan couscous is definitely like one of my favorite things to eat, especially like when my grandma makes it. There's nothing on this heaven or earth that tastes the same when my grandma makes couscous. I'm so sorry to like all my other aunts. they can't compete. Ooh. You know.
Ooh, so that's I see rice, I see meat, is that a potato carrot?
There's a bunch of different like vegetables on here. You have things from like cucumbers to squash to cabbage to garbanzo beans, soybeans. Like I'm telling you, like couscous can look so many different ways, but it generally has this kind of look where you have like the couscous rice at the bottom, and then you have like whatever amalgamation of like vegetables on top, and then in the center of all of it is like the meat. So most couscous I feel like is made with beef, but I've seen couscous made with goat, with chicken, but definitely when it's meat, that's when it tastes the best.
Yeah, it looks good. I'm getting hungry.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. When my grandma comes, I'm like, we're gonna have some motherfucking couscous today, you know?
Closing remarks, comments is more like advice. Like the first one is, what kind of advice do you have for aspiring 3D artists?
My biggest advice to people who are like really considering getting into, you know, 3D artwork is know what you are going into this degree for. I used to work as a peer mentor at UTD, so I like talked to a lot of like incoming students and a lot of freshmen who were like, you know, it's great to have hobbies and it's great to have passion for playing games or, you know, watching movies, but I think it is so fundamentally different from actually sitting down and making it. It is a very grueling, exhaustive process that has a lot of iterations, that has a lot of back and forth, that has a lot of, you know, someone telling you what to do. And you know, some people unfortunately are not built for that. And that's one thing that I would say is like, know what you're getting into the industry for, because it is not easy. You're not going to coast on through. It is, everybody struggles a little getting into the industry, and you have to be prepared to like be able to stomach that and like keep pushing forward and keep trying your best. But also like getting to becoming an artist who quote unquote is good, that also takes a lot of reiterative process. You're going to be constantly doing projects at home or doing projects when, you know, like during vacation, or like you're going to miss vacations and stuff like that to like really hone in on your project. So it is what you put into it. I've always said whatever animation degree or games degree that you go into it, if you put 50% into your degree or whatever it is you're doing to get better, that is what you're going to get out of it, 50%. Now, if you put 300%, you are going to get out 300%. And that's what defines people as quote unquote good or quote unquote bad, you know? So yeah, that'd be like my biggest advice.
I think that's excellent advice. I also saw that, you know, in my time in ATEC and in my time transitioning to ATEC, there is this misconception. And also, I mean, that's what college is about, you know, trying out new things. But like you said, you got to know what you're getting yourself into. You know, I heard some people talk about like, oh, I mean, I know how to draw. I mean, I know I like anime, you know, like I just want to do this because of it.
That's all good. And like,
yes.
Great, love anime and like all of that, but it's also very like different to like love something and like then want to do it. Like I love history, but you ain't never gonna see me become a historian or like write a history book, you know? Like no, I know that that's something that I will not be able to stand, you know? So it's like that's the same, it applies to animation. And just because the end product looks super beautiful and colorful and like wonderful, like there's a lot to get it to that point.
Yeah, the technical aspect is something that I've seen from a lot of what I consider, you know, like you, like successful artists and students. When I saw that, like people don't see that, like it, like okay, it's fine that you know how to draw, but you gotta, since this is the arts and technology, and in a way kind of like arts and science, you gotta be able to have that knowledge of both, and you know, just combine it and make something beautiful. Like for example, if you're gonna draw like characters or you're gonna rig characters, you're getting into, you know, physics, you're getting into, you know, how bodies move, how the muscles work, like you know, anatomy, right? Like you gotta know your anatomy, a sense of 3D space. In my example, like I had that very minimal knowledge of engineering that I got before Switch, so I feel like that was a huge advantage for me, because I understood, you know, like materials in 3D are so different than like when you're trying to make something physical. Like, is the materials resistance gonna hold? Like right now that I'm doing particle simulations, like I'm getting into how fluids work, how, you know, explode. Like I do a little bit of VFX as well. I experiment with it, and all that knowledge applies into that, you know. Yeah, like I said, it has to be a combination of both, not just oh, I know how to draw, I'll be an ATEC, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you know, unfortunately it happens a lot, and like it happens a lot. That's all I can say. And it's like, and I feel so sorry for the students who like who really think like, oh, it's like very simple and easy, because it's not, and it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of like dedication to like to get to that point, you know? So I really feel bad for them because they have like this really like good intention, and it
Yes.
doesn't end up what they want. You know, a little research goes a long way into like, you know, something like this, you know?
I think it's also like a industry wide problem. You know, the whole thing with STEM and STEAM. Like now I see STEAM being more implemented in schools and stuff like that. But like just the fact that art was not seeing as like a big career. You know, like if it's not STEM, it's not like much, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of in a way toned down what students believe that their career was. Because you know, in talking a little bit more about the school, what is something that you miss about UTD, that you miss about ATech, and where do you see it in the next 10 years?
Something that I do miss about ATech is the like being able to like be up with like people and stay up in the labs and have that sort of like connection of like you know, general suffering during school.
Yes.
But also like I guess it's more of like the interaction, I think, of like, you know, finding your people, number one, and then like being able to like spend time with them and hang out with them and like study with them and like swap ideas with them and work on projects together. I really miss that sort of aspect with it. I think ATech as a program has gone through a lot of changes, and I know for a fact, working in the advising office, that the faculty really give a shit about the students. They really want them to succeed. And I cannot like express this enough. Like, I know that there was a lot of unpopular decisions made at UTD, and like it upset a lot of students and stuff like that. And it's like there's a certain point where like the faculty, like the professors, the advisors don't have a say in that, you know?
Yeah.
From when I left UTD to where it's going to be in 10 years, I feel like they do have to make a decision whether or not to make it a school for animation or make it a school for like not mixed media, pretty much, you know, animation, games, photography, blah blah blah. They need to make a decision on what they want to do. I personally, coming from the animation track, think they should dedicate it to being an animation school and have the sort of mixed media like section off and have it start like another school, because animation is what people go to ATech for. 95% of the applicants to ATech are animation students. Less than 5% are for the critical media studies and the other mixed media stuff. And that is just straight up numbers. It's not just me being biased. So I think once UTD or once ATech makes the decision to lean left or lean right, that's when they can really dedicate the assets and the energy to like really making it a good school, because UTD has a lot of students who have made it big time. You know, we have students who are now working at Disney and Pixar and have held their jobs there. And, you know, we have students in Blizzard, and we have students in Naughty Dog, and we have students all over the place. So it's not like ATech can't produce students who are successful in the industry. It's just more of like, once they make the decision whether or not which way they want to lean into more, that's when I know for a fact that UTD will become a lot better. It's not like I'm saying it's bad. I'm just saying it will definitely go farther and be able to reach out to more students a lot more once it, you know, makes a decision like that. One thing that I had to consolidate with myself when it came to like graduating from UTD is like, with the desire to be a good artist and to be successful in the industry, no matter what, there's going to be paths that you are going to have to teach yourself because no one else can. And I think that comes with leveling up as an artist. Like when you reach a point to having to teach yourself something because like, you know, your professor's knowledge only caps at a certain place, that's when I feel like you are really like trying to grow as an artist. So no matter what, you know, teaching yourself is an inevitable part of the process of becoming a good artist. UTD has a unique problem where a lot of the professors are in the industry, and I think that is super wonderful and great, but it also requires more professors. You know, ATech has a sort of standard where the artists that they bring in should be working or have worked in the industry fairly recently, which I think is a wonderful standard because it's very realistic and you get real insight as to how the industry is moving, where it's going, different pipelines and all that stuff. Unfortunately, you know, artists, you know, not a lot of artists want to go back into teaching, or they want to eventually go into teaching, you know, like that's not part of their desire. So UTD has this unique problem where it's like it has a standard to have artists who have worked in the industry, but also that's a bane in itself, because like they have to find artists who want to come back.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm very curious to see where it goes. I always want the best for ATech, despite the problems it may have had or it had. It gave me friends that I'm so close to now, mentors that I am really close to now, an experience where I saw myself grow, and I pushed myself to grow. And like there's like certain things, like it was hard, but it was like I found who I was. I found where my threshold is. I found, you know, how far I can push myself and that sort of thing. So no matter the bad, I feel like I would do it all over again, because it was a good experience as a person, to like as a personal growth thing. I thought it was we can all talk about problems, and we can all talk about like the shitty stuff that happened and stuff like that, but I in a time where things are so bad right now, I feel like we have to give people like their graces and stuff, and like we have to give ATech its graces, because there's so many hardworking professors, and there's so many hardworking faculty who want the best for their students. And I think that's the greatest thing ever in ATech, because, you know, coming from, you know, a school where like people didn't really give a shit unless you were like a, you know, engineer or doctor or, you know, lawyer, to going to a school where it's like they really wanted to foster that sort of like curiosity and drive to like really be successful. Like there's nothing that is ever going to compare to that sort of feeling when like Peter said like, I believe you can do it, or like when Professor Celta said like, you can do it, you know, like nothing's going to compare it for me, you know?
Yeah, I'm so glad you had such a good experience. I wouldn't change it for anything. I would do it all over again as well. And I really hope that it becomes that beacon. I mean, to me, it already was. And right now, obviously, everybody's like struggling because of the pandemic, and they're doing their best, you know. I mean, and if anything, this is their opportunity nowadays. Because of this pandemic, everything has to be digital. It has to be, you know, online. And I think this is a big opportunity for them to really take advantage of this and just become that go-to for students, for professionals, for industries, the whole school of like, you know, I think this is a good opportunity for them to just put their name out there even more. So ATech, we wish you the best. You got this.
We do. We really do.
Okay, so the last thing will just be give you an opportunity to give yourself a shout out. How would you like people to contact you, if you want them to contact you, to follow your work?
Okay, so I feel like I don't really respond to Instagram a lot. I kind of just put it there just to have more of accessibility to my work. But definitely like follow me on Twitter. I keep my DMs open. I do believe in giving back. So if you're a student who wants to ask me a question, like please, you can reach out to me. I have no problem. But yeah, so those are the two places I think. Like if you really want to reach out to me, you can message me on Twitter or message me on ArtStation. Tell me like, you know, a little bit about yourself, so you don't just cold message me and be like, hey, and I'm like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Which is generally a tip. Like don't cold message people. Introduce yourself and let people know who you are, you know?
This is so cool.
I feel like I'm short, but I also have like too much juice kind of energy. Like I'm all over the place. But yeah, so I think that'd be my alebrije, I guess.
Nice. What will you name it?
I'm really bad with names.
Same.
So I would forget its name, number one. I don't know. You give it a name for me? I don't.
What would you say is the approach you took with this? Like, tell me about the textures, the colors.
Like I said, I'm terrible with colors. My favorite color is red, so I was really happy that I got a red bunny, because I'm like, yes, I can work with red. I'm also a big fan of plants, so I feel like 90% of what I draw in my free time is plant based. So I definitely have a lot of like plant brushes. So I guess like the opposite color of red is blue, and I was like, okay, cool. And I kind of got the idea of like a little tortoise shell of like flowers, or like,
oh yeah.
So that's kind of what I went through. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I think the wonder and the coolness about alebrijes is like its freedom and like what you can make it look like. And going off of Coco, you know, they were you know, Technicolor, you know. So and I definitely like the whole idea of like glowing. And I often make a lot of my stuff in my artworks like have like sort of emissive glowing effects. So that's something that I definitely wanted to do. So I made some of the flowers glowing. But yeah, so I'm small, so I wanted to look for like a really cute bunny. I'm also terrible at making like caricatures or like cartoon sort of like animals. I'm terrible at drawing animals in the first place. So I was like, okay, we're gonna go realistic here because I know if I try to make a cartoon bunny on the fly, it's not gonna look good. So
what I'm seeing of this composition, like the personality of this bunny is, you know, he can be really cute or he can be really like he's gonna kill you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I love it. I love how it came through immediately. That's
Okay.
Yep, that was me. That was a little fun challenge. I've never like had someone tell me like what my alebrije is. Thank you for the challenge. It was I was a little nervous in the beginning. I'm like, oh my god, I have to do this. I'm gonna panic. But no, we made it through.
Well, I mean, thank you. It was an honor having you on this episode and just knowing a little bit more about you. I mean, we sort of met at UTD, and I mean, I just follow you online. Your online presence is what I know of you. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for being in this episode, and I just look forward to seeing more of your work.
Fully, I want to come out with some new stuff actually pretty soon. So we're hoping for the best. But thank you again for having me. I wish I got to like meet you more at UTD and talked with you more. But now we have all the time in the world.
Oh yes.
But yeah, no, I think this is a really like great thing that you're doing.
Yes, and I mean, once we keep it going, you probably have to come back because this is amazing. Thank you, Ayah, and have a good night. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.
Bye. See ya.